Hey guys, I guess every one of us got disconnected. Some error came and it just got disconnected, right?
Yes, Sakit.
Yeah, so what was the last thing you heard from me? Was it about this page only?
Uh, we cannot
Let
see
me
your
share the
screen.
screen. Yeah, just check it.
Yeah, about this. You're telling me about description.
Yeah, so the point is on the left hand side, you can see different actions which are available here in the API. Departments API, I don't want to expose right now. So I can just go and delete these departments API actions. I can create connectors separately for sample API and for departments API one by one, right? And then sample API get phrases action is there. I'll say this is the description. I'll put it into the description. Oh, it's put selected, I believe. So I click on this first and then provide details here. Have to be sure which one is selected. Okay. Visibility, I'm saying unrestricted. None means unrestricted. And the final URL will be this. That is going to be hit when the action represented by this is represented as a connector. You have to do this for all the actions further. This is right. One. So I'll say get interesting quotes. Then I go to the next one where I say this is for post interesting quote to sample API. Then I go to get one once again. Then I go to delete one. Delete quote by ID from sample API. Whatever you feel is the right text you can put and then put. Here I'll say an existing code in sample API. And it's all configured. Just click on update connector once done. It saves all the configuration. Successful. Comes back on that same screen. And then I just go to home. I say create a new resource. If it is consumption plan based logic app only, so I can directly go to integration and select logic app consumption. Select the subscription and resource group. Name the logic app. Choose the location. Next. Set the tags. Next. Create. We need to test whether those API options are available as connectors or not, right? Say go to resource. Here comes Logic App Designer. I am looking for whenever the HTTP request comes, I want to return back the codes. Without parameter, if it is coming, all codes I want to return. No request body I am looking for. The other parameters are like method. Select that and say get. So that a get request is received, the response will go. URL will automatically be generated when we save the logic app. Maybe we can click on save here. The URL is generated. We'll come back to this in a short while. This is my trigger action. Then I say new step. Whenever the whenever the request comes as a get request here on this URL, what I want to do, new step. Here I'll go to custom category directly and see the sample API is already visible as a main connector and then the different operations. I say go for get interesting codes from sample API. This is what I want to do. So all the setup it is going to do for me. No further configuration required, so it's done. What needs to be done with these codes? I want to send it back as a response, maybe via mail. So I say new step. If I want, I can actually say send it as a HTTP response also. Maybe we can try searching. Here we do have HTTP. Okay, this is for creating the request. So let me remove this. We'll go by mail. So I say Office 365 Outlook. And what I want is I want to send a mail. Okay, before that, I want to modify this. I want a query string parameter over here. Or maybe in the request body, I want to take in the email. So let's say it should receive an email as a string. This is the schema I have created here for input. Okay, and then back over here where I say send email is the action. To whom it needs to be sent. I can say see more. In fact, it should be from HTTP request body. I can actually get it from the queries also. Let's make it queries. Or maybe to keep it simple, I'll just say send it to a predefined mailbox. You can explore it further, how to take in the email ID and all. But now we'll not get into that. Subject is quote, and the body I want should be from the sample API output. I'll say the body. And then again I go back here and remove this. Set it back to the original one. Okay, it's a simple get request only coming in and save. The idea is whether we are able to use our API as a custom connector or not. Right? API might be doing some microservice action. It could be a function app also, which I might be looking to call here. Function app based on HTTP trigger. I might be looking to call here. So custom connector can help me with that as well. Say run trigger. Now, how it is basically going to be invoked. So for that, actually, I should go back to designer first. I didn't copy the URL of it. So here I expand HTTP request and get this URL copied. Then I say run trigger. Run, and then in a separate tab, I give that URL and press enter. It's a HTTP GET request. Here we come back to logic apps. It shows me the confirmation that it has executed successfully. That means I must have received an email. So let me check within my Microsoft Outlook. It should appear in a short while. Meanwhile, you can check your own email IDs also, whatever you have configured there. Oh, I did it for Gmail, I believe. So at the wrong location. I'll say it's email.com. That's why I was wondering why I didn't receive it yet.
Saket, will Outlook connector work for Gmail ID?
See, I am using Gmail as a to address, right? Within two, I can specify anything, no? Outlook connector is being used only for creating the mail. But for sending the mail, I'm using the email ID as Gmail.
Okay, got it.
It is asking for this. There it is. Okay. So likewise, I can create the workflow for different operations as per the need. Yes. Once done, I can get this deleted as well. And back home. So is it interesting or not? Virtually, we can integrate any system with the help of workflows created using the logic apps. Yes or no? Whether there is a ready-made connector or not. As far as we have the external endpoints available for any service, using custom connector feature, we can just expose everything as a logic app connector, and by that we can provide the proper integration with proper orchestration. With Azure durable functions also we were doing the same thing, but there it was the workflow being designed entirely by using code. Here logic app is allowing me to get it done in much better way, simpler way, with the help of a visual designer. Understood? Yes.
Yes, Saket.
Okay, so now it is about the API management. Let's have a little discussion. I create some API which talks to my database and provides the actions against it. This API is hosted on app service and it knows all the details of my database directly. This API app probably has got a configuration string, connection string, which knows where the database is, what are the credentials. Okay, now what do you think if I expose this API as its direct endpoint to the clients? And if some client with wrong intentions tries to hack into the API and gets the access to the configuration, from where gets the access to the connection string and all, don't you think it will be a threat for my database? Yes or no? Yes or no? Even if this API is having some security enabled on it, but it is being directly exposed. It's just like to protect your valuables at your home. When you are moving out, you are just putting a lock on your main door, which is visible to the external world. So if someone wants to do the burglary, simply can break the lock and can get in. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, Saket.
So don't you think this becomes a threatful option where I'm hosting my API which is directly exposed, which is the case right now also. See, my API is directly exposed. If this endpoint is exposed, if everyone knows that, okay, this is the endpoint, and if they are pretty qualified hackers, they can try getting into the system and try hacking the configuration and doing the harm. Yes or no? Yes or no? If you agree, tell me what is the solution, what we can do with this. My scenario is still the same. Here is the database, here is the API, and that's on public endpoint. API knows everything about database. Here are my clients. I have to bring in some intermediary component as a proxy or something, which talks to the API in a restricted environment, gets only the desired results, and then clients will be exposed with the endpoint of this component only. Clients will never be able to know where and which exact API is being used. Now this component might be hosted on some IP address like this. I can get this IP address whitelisted over here. Rest all IP addresses I'll keep blacklisted so that somehow if someone comes to know about the public endpoint of this API, will still not be able to get the access. As except this IP address, I will keep everything blocked over here, blacklisted here. Does that make sense or not?
Yes.
Any real life example where you do see this kind of pattern? A simple example I'll tell you. If you want to raise some issue with the PM of our country, can you directly reach him? You cannot. You have to raise the issue via proper channel to PMO office, not to the PM. If that complaint is found to be actually something that should be shared with PM, PMO will take the decision, will raise it to PM, will get the response, and that response will be conveyed to you. So that PMO, the PM office, is basically playing the role of proxy in this case. The role of API is basically the PM himself. Yes or no? Yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Even if it is in-person meeting being done, still you will not be meeting with Mr. PM directly. You will be meeting someone from PMO. They will basically convey your message. Okay, so that is basically to protect some confidential resources. Now, do you think this approach can be helpful with APIs as well? This is where we use the proxy created by a resource called as API gateway. See that term, by this itself you can understand what exactly it is. To get to the API, you have to go to this gateway first. Send request here. From here, if all well, if this API gateway thinks that yes, it can be forwarded, it will be forwarded. Otherwise, if it looks to be malicious request or unauthorized request, unauthorized access, it will be blocked right over here. Yes, this API gateway on Azure is provided by API-M. With API-M, it's not just gateway service, you get many more things. Like we're talking about self-service portal and all. Except the consumption plan, you have the self-service portal available everywhere. That's what we discussed in the morning. Am I right? Where you can have your own policies created. Within the policies, you can restrict the number of requests per second from a specific IP. I mean, you can actually set the threshold of the number of requests. That within a minute, I should have only 5 requests from one IP, not more than that. If more than that number of requests coming from the same IP, I would treat it as a threat. And I will blacklist that IP for a while, maybe for half an hour. That's default actually. I can also check whether the user has got the right access credentials or not. If not, I'll send him back. Many such policies can be created. Kind of a security check, like you go to airport, before you get into the area where aircraft is accessible, there are multiple checks, right? So that's what API-M is going to do. Understood? And that API instance we have already deployed. Now we want the API to be served from this API-M to the actual clients. This API endpoint could be the actual API endpoint, could be a logic app API endpoint where HTTP connector is used. It could be a function app endpoint also, because function apps also are accessible via the HTTP requests. So this API-M can serve everything which is accessible via HTTP request, including websites as well. Okay. Mainly, it's not used for websites. Websites are intended to be directly accessible to the end user, as we call them as public websites. So the API-M usually would be working with any functional code that you have represented by APIs, represented by web services, represented by logic apps, function apps, etc. Maybe the old WCF services also. Understood? Understood? Now it's about implementation. So it all starts with API-M deployment. Here I can see the deployment is completed, which we started just after the lunch break. Let's say go to resource. That's the step 1, deploy API-M instance. Your APIs will be ultimately available on this gateway URL. Your clients from here onwards will not be served the APIs with their original address, which is this. This will be hidden behind this gateway address. Understood? Understood? Practically, I can have the API hosted on a app service which is not having any public access. Maybe this app service is accessible via only the virtual network. And then API management also I connect to that same virtual network, so that no way anyone can reach this URL at all, because there is no public endpoint. Forget about whitelisting and blacklisting. If it is virtual network based access, That whitelisting or blacklisting also is not needed. There is no public endpoint simply. That way it becomes more secure. And that's what is the recommendation here. API management services must use a virtual network. Understood?
Yes, Saket.
Next, now this API gateway is created, API management instance is there. It needs to be aware of which APIs it is serving, right? One gateway can serve hundreds of APIs also. And out of those 100 APIs, it can create some product of some 20 APIs as well. So when someone subscribes for the product, whichever APIs are included in that product will be accessible to that end user. And there can be approval based workflow also here. I will allow only the approved clients to be able to communicate with APIM. So if someone subscribes, doesn't get the access directly, I get an approval request. If as an admin I think yes, the access should be granted, I approve, then they get the access. This is where the self-service portal will come in. To get the self-service portal ready, by the time our APIs are ready, we will once go to portal overview under development portal or developer portal. Click on enable course so that using development portal, the client can actually test your APIs. Otherwise, it will be a cross origin resource sharing request, which will be disabled. I mean, not allowed. I want to get this portal published as well. What it says is the developer portal cannot be published because it has not been provisioned. Visit the developer portal administrative interface by clicking the link in the toolbar and refresh this page to enable publishing. Okay. For that, once I need to go to this developer portal. With this, with admin privileges, I'm logging into the portal. It actually gives me a content management system where I can design my own development portal or what we call as self-service portal for my clients. Let's wait for that CMS tool to come up. It will be a portal only with all the portions editable. CMS usually allows you to do that, right? Initially, it takes some time because it sets up a complete website for you. Ready-made website, which you can customize with the CMS capability. Using which we can make some changes as well. As I said, customization is all possible here. So here comes the CMS. For me, you can see everything is editable. Right? I have got some tools also over here. Maybe I want to change this title. I just click here and start typing. Here we have the Save Changes button. Click on this. Undo, redo, everything is there. For that, you have to scroll down a bit so that these buttons will be available. Save, this is undo, this is redo. All the content, images, everything you can change from here. Pages you can add from here and so on. So for now, I just want this title to be changed and that's it. So with this change being saved, I go back to my Azure portal and here I do a refresh for the complete page as suggested by that message. Here now the publish option is enabled. I click on publish so that the portal, self-service portal for the client is made available to the clients actually. And it actually takes some time later on. So practically, if I want to see whether it is available or not, I just go to overview. I copy this developer portal URL, which I will be sharing with the clients. I open a separate browser where I don't have a login session. Assuming that this is actually being done from the client's machine. And I try browsing that portal from here. If this portal becomes visible here with all the content, with all the changes we have made, we'll say, yes, the portal is published properly and accessible. If some error page comes or the content is not the one that I'm looking for, that means the changes are not yet completely published. It is done on a background worker thread on a separate process, so it takes a while. Thankfully, here it has been quickly done for us. It's ready and we can see the changes as well. So this Firefox browser I'm keeping ready. I'm back into the portal where we were working with APIM. Now it is about importing and productizing the APIs. So here on the left hand side, we have a section called as APIs, within which we have option called as APIs. I click on that. Several options, blank API. If I want to build an API from here or a mock API from here, I'll use this. WebSocket, this is something for enabling the two-way communication between client server services, full duplex communication. This is a beta feature. Preview means beta. Not supposed to be used as of now for production ready implementation. And then we have options for creating API from definition. Open API, WADL or WSDL. This is SOAP-based representation for old style web services. WADL is XML representation for REST APIs. Open API is an alternative of WADL, where the specification is JSON based, not XML based. And then if you are looking to create API management for an existing function app or logic app or an app service. So again, here also with app service, there is a issue because of which directly providing this URL is not actually able to get the proper API imported. So I'll be going with Open API. We have already downloaded a file for that, right? Let's go here. Meanwhile, let me cancel this. Here we already have one sample API created for us. Right? If you want to keep it, you can keep it, or else you can delete also. I am keeping it. I say Open API now. And here I say select a file. See, I can provide the URL or file. URL is not working for some reason. The team is working on fixing that issue. So meanwhile, I can say select a file from desktop of my machine. The file that I'm looking to import is my apis.json. Same thing what we imported while creating a logic app custom connector. It automatically takes the display name, the name used by APIM, and then the base URL that will be used to expose these APIs here onwards. Say create. It will automatically import the entire API definition from that JSON based documentation into APIM. See, it's done. Both APIs, departments and sample APIs, are included here. Policies, if I want to create, I can create from here. Like, say for sample API get, which returns all codes. I want an inbound policy before the request goes to the original API to be set. I want the request can come from a specific IP to APIM. I can put IP filter. If I want to limit the call rate that more than 10 times the call shouldn't come, I can specify. Let's say number of calls 10 and within a period of, let's say, 10 seconds. If more than that number of requests are coming, in that case, I'll block that IP address for a while until and unless 10 seconds are not over. If I make it 60, means within 1 minute only 10 calls will be allowed. I can create policies like this. Lot of help provided by the portal itself. This policy actually is an XML document that gets configured, and this portal is helping me out to not get into the XML complex configuration, but still create it for me. This is my actual backend service, where also I can create the policies if required with the help of code editor. For backend services, I have to do it with XML code myself. And then there is outbound policy also. What I want to send back, I can override the output coming back also. Any header which is returned by this API, which may have reference of this particular endpoint, can be overridden and can be changed to something else, maybe something specific to this API management itself. This is the overall flow. Request comes. Here inbound processing policies applied, then goes to the actual backend service. Then response comes. Outbound processing applies different policies to change the headers and other details. And then response goes back to the client. I want to test this API whether it is working or not. So I go to the test button here, and here I simply click on send. It shows me the details about this API just like Swagger. I say send. There is a subscription key already being passed, which means via API management, anyone calls the API has to have a subscription first. Simply they cannot call the API directly. And see what is the path. It's not my original path, right? It's the APIM path. Here I am getting the response. Actually, this is the complete response with some response headers and the actual values coming in. Understood? Now with this, I want to create a product. API is already imported. So I go to products. I say add a new product. Some sample products are already there. I name this as Providence APIs. Some description, maybe, but now I just use the display name value itself as description. And then I say it requires a subscription, and subscription for activation requires an approval. If there is a subscription count limit, how many subscriptions can be created? I can put the number here. If I want unlimited subscriptions, I just leave it blank. Legal terms, if any, can be pasted here. And then using this button, I include whichever APIs I want to expose as a part of this product. Let's say it is API demo web API. If I want, I can add more APIs also. Eco API I'm not looking for as of now, so I just want this. Say create. This will include sample and department API both. Now one more thing. Here you can see the access is available to administrators only. I want, apart from administrators, it should be available to anyone who is logged in also. So for this, I need to get inside that. Let me come back. Here is the product. I click on this product and then I go to access control, where I say add group. I say give access to developers as well. Guest means without authentication also, without logging in also, the API will be visible. The product will be visible, which I don't want. So I say select only the developers. So administrators and developers have the access. I come back to this OI demo API here. All products are there. I do a refresh here. And now I should see under access control, it should have administrators and developers both. Yes. Here in Firefox, if I say refresh, I say explore APIs. I'm able to see Eco API because for this, even guests have the access. My API is not listed. Even if I say sign in, I don't have a user registered yet, so I say sign up. I want to register with this email ID. Maybe, yeah, this one only. The password I create for my profile. ASWJPP. I hope it's correct. Looks to be correct. Okay. It must have sent an email to my Gmail ID to check whether, I mean, for the activation of account, verification of account. So I go back here and open the Gmail account. There it is. I need to click on this link to get my account verified, without which I'll not be allowed to log in. Once I click that link, the account will be termed as verified. And here, then I can say sign in. with this ID and the password which I gave during registration. Sign in. Looks like verification is not done yet. Let me refresh this page here in the Firefox and try logging in again. Yeah, it's done. It took some time.
Saket,
Yeah.
will it automatically will get integrated to the organization's Active Directory as well?
No, for that you have to do the settings actually over here. If you see this API management configuration, I actually had the option to integrate with Active Directory also. Okay, where was it? So using that privileged identity, actually I have to do this. So it must be via identities, I guess. Right, so some configuration required. Yeah, it is OAuth 2.0. Using this, you would be integrating the Active Directory users.
Okay.
By default, it's not. It's basically the private users. Understood?
Okay. Yeah.
So here I'm logged in Firefox. I go to APIs. Still Echo APIs only. Because my API, oh, under products also it's not visible. You know the reason? Now I'm signed in. Still it's not there. Reason is simple. I said that my API is accessible to developers. Okay, but did I publish my product? See here the state. The other two APIs seem to be published, but what about this? Not published. So I come to products, select my product, and click on publish. It says state is published now. And then I go back to Firefox and do a refresh here. I'm already logged in. Let's see. Providence APIs are there. Under APIs also I should see API demo web API. After signing in. If I sign out right now, only Echo API will be visible. Let's try. I do a sign out and see APIs. Only Echo API is there. Products, only that starter and unlimited is there. But if I sign in, and then I say APIs, I get my published API, my published product as well. Now I go to products, I select this product, which has got a couple of APIs into it, which will be listed here. In fact, right now it is published as one API only. Both sample and department API published as one. I select this API and see the description of that API, what it has got. I can see everything here, but if I try to execute the API for testing purpose, I actually don't have any button to try or something, right? Here, okay, here it is. I say try it. I don't have a subscription key without which it will anyways will not work. Even if I do send, I should not get any response. It just says access denied. Yes. So what to do? I want to be able to test this API before I integrate with my products. For that API to be used, to be tried, I first need to subscribe for the API or the product at least. So I go back where the products are listed. I select the product, Providence APIs. And here I say by what name the subscription would be. Let's say OIPL Providence sub, that is subscription. Subscribe. I got the subscription, but see the state it's showing is submitted. What that mean? Here, even though I've got the keys, I will still not be able to try out any of the product because my subscription is submitted. It's not approved yet. So if I go back to products and select the API and try to test any operation from it, like sample API get, again I say try it, and here I say send, it still may not work. Even though I am subscribed, I don't have the subscription key yet. Why? Why? Remember, while creating the product, we said that the subscription requires an approval. Right? If I go to this product settings, here we said requires approval. Yes. I need to approve the subscription request. I click this product. I go to subscriptions option. Here I can see all the subscriptions. This is default for admin, and this one is the requested one. State is submitted here as well. I select it, and here as an admin, I can see the details. What is the scope? What is the product name? Who is the user? If I want to send a notification, where I want to send it, whether developer portal or I don't want to send the notification, all things I can change. Whether the tracing needs to be enabled for this one, if this user is complaining with some issue, right? I can do that. And then how do I approve? Using this 3 dots, I get to a menu where I say either activate means approve, suspend means though it is approved, but it's not accessible as of now. Maybe something payment or something is pending from the client. I can suspend. I can reject the request also, or after activation, I can cancel the subscription also, which can be reactivated later. And then delete means delete. If my user complains that their keys are compromised, someone else has hacked and got it changed, they may request me to regenerate the keys from my end. So I can do that from here. So now I say activate subscription. Message and say yes. Subscription is updated. I go back to Firefox. Just do a refresh over here. I go to Providence APIs, product, wherein I have API demo web API. See the subscription status has changed to active. I click this API here. I want to test this sample API get. I say try it. You can see the subscription key now is there by default, included into headers by default. And now if I say send, the request will be created with subscription key, and then the response comes back naturally. right? Now from client application also, if someone wants to send this request, they have to include this key with this header. Then only the API will be callable. Means if my backend API has not implemented the security at all, still web API management can or API management can make it mandatory for the users to be authenticated. So some security explicitly, user-based security explicitly can be brought in. This is quite essential for older subscriptions or older APIs when security was not a great concern. People created the APIs, very powerful APIs, but without considering the security threats. So without changing the implementation of old legacy APIs, using API management and API-M gateways, I can bring in the security for them also. Interesting or not? Practically in the backend, these are two different APIs, but with this API-M, I got it as one single API for me. I can create any mix and match of this kind. Understood? I can productize my APIs. I can market my APIs. I can put a charge. I mean, I can commercialize the APIs. Yes or no? The portal which we are using here right now is what we called as self-service portal. Understood? Understood? Understood?
Yes, Abhijit.
Do you find it interesting or not
Yes.
as a powerful tool? This can give a new life to older systems also by wrapping the older systems behind it, right? Am I right? So just try these things out. This is not it. There are many features over here, lots of settings over here, lots of combinations like getting the old APIs or original APIs on a private endpoint. API-M also joining that private endpoint and getting exposed itself on a public endpoint as well, so that you can hide your original APIs completely behind API-M. And this product being cloud-based is quite scalable as well. The basic features of cloud computing are definitely applicable over here. Do you understand?
Yes, okay.
Okay. So anybody faced any issues while working with this? These resources we need not delete as such, because once the 4-hour duration is completed, the sandbox itself will be deleted and all of our deployment will by default be deleted then. So we need not keep an eye on that. Right? If it is our own subscription, definitely we need to keep an eye. Yes?
Yes, Saket.
Okay, so I'll just get my directory switched to my original one. So it's this one. And it's one thing I want to know, like, how do I unassociate myself from that sandbox thing? If I want to manually do that, not only sandbox, any other directory with which I was a member, I want to leave that. Let's switch directory only once again. Go to all directory. And here we get the option of leaving. So you first switch to that directory. Say for example, I go to this sandbox directory. Again, I say switch directory here. Where is that? A leave button used to be there. Where it went? I'm sorry. Some UI changes seems to be there. Just give me a moment. Okay, so they seem to have provided a different website for this now. It's myapps.microsoft.com. Log in there with the same credentials. This is about. Okay, so let me select this Microsoft Learn Sandbox. And then here, this is the same thing. View account. Yeah, so under view account, we do have organizations. And then here I have the option leave organization. Leave. Okay. Right. So simply what I did is myapps.microsoft.com, logged in. We get to this. Here we selected the user. We clicked on view account. A new portal comes up here, myaccount.microsoft.com, where we have organizations. And within that, we select, we locate the organization which we want to leave. And there we have leave option. So just do as per the screen instructions and you leave it. So now if you want to go back to your original thing, this is in Chrome where I can say switch directory once again. I do a refresh over here. I should see only 2 of them, which actually are my own stuff. I should not see that sandbox thing anymore. Right? Sandbox is not there. These are the tenants which we created. This is my primary tenant. This is my secondary tenant. And this is the tenant that we created yesterday. That fourth one for sandbox is not there. So we have disassociated. So though for sandbox, it's not needed. After 4 hours, once the sandbox is deleted automatically, your user ID will be disassociated with it. You won't find it anymore until and unless you don't sign in for another sandbox. Understood?
Yes,
Yes,
Saket.
Saket.
Okay, so we'll finish the session today here itself because the next topic I definitely wanted to cover, where we are going to talk about the key vault and all. But seems to be there are some services which have got some changes. My demo that I kept ready for this particular session itself is not working. I need to get that fixed so that I can actually guide you how exactly with the new experience that Key Vault can be integrated. So that will be our first thing tomorrow morning. And then we'll be talking about some event-based solutions, well, where we will be talking about event grid, event hubs, then messaging-based solutions like service bus and queue storage. Queue storage up to certain extent we saw today. But yeah, tomorrow programmatic use we are going to see. And then it's all about monitoring and optimizing the deployments. So officially tomorrow will be the last day for the entire training. And that doesn't mean my support will stop by tomorrow itself. You have my contact details already with you. You can actually get in touch with me any point in time. Because the real queries will come once you actually start working. As of now, you are just working on some of the scenarios being shared with me, or maybe some scenarios which you might be getting from the reference material or the websites which you might be searching for getting more idea on Azure. But real projects come with real challenges. That's where there will be more queries. Correct?
Yeah.
Okay, then. So that's it for today. See you tomorrow at same time, 9:30 a.m. And we'll be going with the final few topics, right? So that we will be able to finish everything. And as I said on day one also, this course actually targets AZ204. The entire program has been designed to around that AZ204 certification. So with little bit more practice, more in-depth implementation and more samples being tried out, you can actually attempt AZ204 easily. Okay.
Okay. Yeah. Sure.
Okay then. Bye bye. I
Okay,
hope
thanks,
you
Saket.
enjoyed the session today as well.
Yes, Saket. Bye.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Saket.